back. WNST to now, and of course, with the Ravens now returning to some level of prominence, pitching the opening day shutout in Cincinnati against the men of Marvin. Everyone is taking note, including this lady who at one point was covering nothing but the Dallas Cowboys down there in Fort Worth for the Star-Telegram. Now with pro football talk and covering the entire league and still dabbling in the world of Jerry and the Cowboys. And how about them Cowboys, Shereen Williams? A nice little start for them, but the Ravens have made their own noise, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I think anytime you pitch a shutout in the first game, that's a great way to start. You know, the defenses are always ahead of the offenses this time of year, and we saw that again. But I think what the Ravens did was pretty special to get the shutout, and I believe they were the only team to do that. So that bodes well for them. I think heading into the rest of the season, I actually thought the Bengals would be a pretty decent team. It looks like they're not going to be, but I guess we'll find that out as the year goes on. I know it's early. But I really like what the Ravens did, especially defensively.
It's astonishing how quickly we get a temperature, right? I mean, Giants get the snot kicked out of them on Sunday. They're no good anymore. I mean, the Patriots, what's happening? Maybe Brady's going to show his age now. You know, the door opens. They're firing Marvin. It's week one. They played an hour of football in Cincinnati. And but I would say this, you know, for the Ravens specifically, and we can go through the Browns this week. We got Jacksonville. And then, you know, Pittsburgh and Oakland later on. It sort of ramps up a little bit for the caliber of competition. But this game sort of checked all the boxes, Shereen. I mean, road game, division game, place they've had a hard time winning. Quarterback hadn't practiced, hadn't been under center at all. Putting together a new defense, working with a new offensive line. Quarterback and the wide receivers haven't thrown a football together. All the tight ends are in motion at this point. No proven running back. And all they did was go out and take the ball away, slap the quarterback around, and more than that, and I know you're involved in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the writers. Boy, Terrell Suggs, and look, Shereen, Terrell Suggs, like most people in Texas, I don't like him, but I like you. And Terrell Suggs, for me, has never been anything but a really, really good football player who had a year or two of flash and was going to run around and chase the quarterback. He's going to get himself into the room now to be discussed, and what he does from today moving forward, much like Steve Smith at the end, it's probably going to greatly affect whether he is or is not a Hall of Famer, because as I sit here right now, and you know more about it than I do, he's not a Hall of Famer right now, right?
Yeah, I think he's still got a little ways to go. It's hard to project these guys when they're in the middle of their careers. I mean, some are obvious. Okay, Tom Brady's obvious. I get that. But if you start naming the obvious ones, and by obvious, I mean the guys that when they're being presented in the room, that their presenter gets up and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present Brett Favre," and sits down. There's no case that needs to be made. And there's only a handful of guys playing in the NFL right now. There's only a handful of guys since I've been in the room for 11 years that's been done with. There's only a handful of those guys. The rest of them, really, it's hard to project how their careers are going to finish and what they need to do and how long it might take once they get out of the league. Obviously, they have to wait the 5 years, but a lot of them wait much longer. There aren't a lot of first-year eligibles who go into the Hall of Fame. In fact, the Hall of Fame list is coming out tonight, and we're going to see who's going to be on that list.
I have to interrupt this to say 52, right? I mean, come on, right? I mean, he's going to be a stand-up, sit-down for Garceau, right?
Oh, absolutely, no question about it. Absolutely, that one's easy. But back to Suggs, you know, with what he continues to keep doing in his career, which he had 2 sacks the other day, and he just keeps making plays. If he keeps doing that, yeah, I think you look over at him and you go, this guy's a Hall of Famer. You know, with Jason Taylor, I think it was kind of sort of the same way. I don't know that anybody looked at Jason Taylor in any one season and said, this guy is completely, totally dominant. It's a Hall of Famer. We're putting him in right now. But he just kept doing that same thing year after year after year after year, and it added up into a Hall of Famer. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing with Suggs right now. He just keeps making plays over and over and over again, and eventually you stand up, take notice of that, and go, boy, this guy's been consistent over X number of years, whoever it is, however long they play. And if they've played long enough over that period of time and been that consistent, absolutely, you look at him and you go, all right, is he a first-year guy, or is he going to have to wait a little bit to go in? And so there's a lot of those guys playing in the NFL right now that probably just need a few more years of consistency, and then you look at their career at the end and go, yeah, absolutely.
The Reed Palomalu thing is going to be interesting when the time comes as well, isn't it, Shereen?
It is, and you know, we have not. I'm a big proponent of safeties. We have not been fair to safeties. We have not put enough safeties in the Hall of Fame, and in the modern era, on the modern era ballot, modern candidates, we're just not putting them in. Kenny Houston, I think, was the last guy that played. When I'm talking about, again, the modern era ballot, I'm not talking about Kenny Easley, who went as a seniors candidate, but the John Lynch and the Brian Dawkins and all those guys, the Darren Woodson. We keep talking about them in the room, and we just don't put them in. And I had 2 safeties in my final 5 this year. We have to get safeties their due. We have to put them in. The safety position is so undervalued by the Hall of Fame committee and by a lot of people in particular. And those guys are so important to defenses. And Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu, to me, should be in their first ballot. No questions asked. Get them in the Hall of Fame. And then some of those other guys deserve to be talked about and eventually go into the Hall of Fame. And I think they will, but it's just too bad that those guys have to wait for so long. And it's the same with the tight end position. We're not fair to tight ends either, and they're such a big part of offenses. And obviously Tony Gonzalez is going to be a first ballot guy. I think he's a 2019 guy. He'll be the next tight end to go in.
Shereen Williams has covered the National Football League for a quarter of a century. She now does it at Pro Football Talk. She is one of the Hall of Fame voters. I'm holding her personally responsible for our things, Art Modell, but I say that to McLean and everybody else too, so don't worry about it. She is one of my favorite Texans as well, and you're down there deep in the heart of Texas, and I know expectations are very, very large for Dak Prescott, but this Ezekiel Elliott thing, I haven't talked much about it on the radio, and anytime the guys in the suits come down the hallway and the lawyers, I've learned enough to know, let him prattle on and just, wake me when there's a result. But I guess in the case of the Cowboys and what it means for the franchise and where we were last year with Tom Brady not playing and, we just saw Vontaze Burfict in Cincinnati and we can probably do an hour, you and me, just on Tagliabue to Goodell and who wants to play judge and jury and how the system should be set up and who should play the hanging judge. But it's very sloppy down there right now, and Jerry's always in the middle of this down there, right?
Yeah, no question about that. And this thing's not going to be resolved in a matter of days. It's not resolved now. I asked Ezekiel Elliott after the game, do you expect to play the rest of the season? And it's a legitimate question because I want his expectations, but he had the right answer, which is, I don't know. No one knows whether he's playing the rest of the year or not. And so he just has to go week by week and wait to see. But this thing's going to go on for days. It's going to go on for weeks. It's going to go on for months, and it could go on for years. The Tom Brady case, we talked about it for a year, and I know everybody got sick of it. This case has gone on for 14 months, and we may not have another year of talking about this. I mean, if he has to serve a suspension, I think he's going to have to serve it in 2018. Well, that's a year from now. So now we're talking about this case for 2 years, ad nauseum. And I'm sick of talking about it. I know probably, especially non-Cowboys fans, are really sick of talking about it. I know the Giants fans are livid that he played the other day, but it is what it is. It's the court system, and it's what we have to go through to get there in the end. And so this thing's going to play out for many, many more months as we go forward.
Some observations from week one. Obviously the Ravens are a great story. Alex Smith is a great story. I don't know about Jacksonville. We play them in 2 weeks. That's a fascinating tale because it's pretty obvious they've done well in the draft and they've had high picks and they've had high hopes and they've had bad luck and all of that got Gus Bradley canned there. But coming out of the gate the way they did, maybe Houston stinks. Maybe Cincinnati stinks. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Jets and San Francisco and some of these other teams took some medicine over the weekend. They're not going to get up. But for some of these other teams, there is a little bit of a shock value to a Jacksonville team winning by 3 touchdowns to start a season.
Yeah, and I watched all of that game. I bought into them last year, and I picked them to go to the playoffs because I thought they were ready to turn that corner. As you said, they've spent more money in free agency than any other team over the last 3 years. And so they've added all these top free agents. They've, of course, had top draft picks. And so theoretically, they should be ready to get over the hump, pass ready to get over the hump, and they didn't get that done last year, had another high pick this year, and that defense is really, really good. I do know that. And that defense is going to be good all year. It was good last year. It's even better this year. And I know Houston's offensive line is bad, and I know it's missing Dwayne Brown, but I think this is going to be a defensive line that's going to get sacks consistently. And they're probably not 10 every week, but they're going to get a lot of sacks every game, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback every game. And then it's up to Blake Bortles. Can he do enough? Can he make few enough mistakes to let that team win? Because every other part around him is really good. And I know they lost their leading receiver for the year, and that's unfortunate. But they do have enough parts, except the question being at quarterback. Can he play well enough to help Jacksonville get to the playoffs? And I think that's where that team is right now. I don't think they know. I don't think we know. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen with him the rest of the year.
Shireen, we got Cleveland coming in here this week, and, there's optimism there. I've spent most of the week talking to people in Cleveland. I mean, just not that there were moral victories, but when you play Pittsburgh that tough and you could talk about one play early in the game, an explosive play and a special team play, things go wrong, that's how you lose a game. I'm sure Tomlin feels real happy that they got out of that one alive, but here come the Browns here with some sense of renewed optimism. I don't think anybody expects the Browns to win this week, but I don't think this is going to be an easy game, and I'm very interested in seeing what Deshaun Kaiser is going to look like behind an offensive line. You speak about spending money, and we remember back when Oakland and Jacksonville and Cleveland were spending money like drunken sailors because they had all that cap money. Cleveland put it all into the offensive line after letting Schwartz and Alex Mack get out of there last year. Maybe they're going to try to run the ball. I don't think they're going to run the ball against the Ravens, but I think they could have some success at some point this year with that offense.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I like what Kaiser did for a first start. Had him in the game in the fourth quarter. That's really all you can ask from a rookie quarterback in his first game on the NFL's worst team last year. And I think they've started to turn that corner a little bit. And as you said, they're still a little ways away. It's not going to happen this year. But I think they're going to win some games that we don't expect them to win this year. Just because he's not going to reminds me a lot of Dak Prescott in that he's not going to make the mistakes generally that are going to kill a team. He's going to keep his team in the game, and their defense is good enough to keep them in the game. And I think they're going to be in some games in the fourth quarter and pull some of these games out. I don't see them winning just one game or two games. I think this is a better team than that. I don't think they're going to get that number one pick again this year. And then they're going to get Myles Garrett back, which should theoretically make their defense even better than what it is. But I do think they have some pieces in place moving forward. And if Kaiser's a real deal, I think this team is building. I think they finally got the right coach in place, that they leave him there and give him some time to build. I like what they're doing in Cleveland. Yeah,
we're going to see them 12 weeks from now. I'm interested to see whether they are the limping 2-11 bums they always are, or whether they're a 5-8 scrappy or a 6-7 sort of scrappy, and whether that defense, it's certainly Myles Garrett and what they spent in the draft pick on him is going to mature. She's one of our favorite guests here. She is NFL Shireen. That's Charean out on Twitter. She's Shireen Williams. 24 seasons, covered the National Football League. She's a Hall of Fame voter, deep in the heart of Texas, usually embedded down with those Dallas Cowboys, now with Pro Football Talk after many, many years at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Tell everybody what you do at Pro Football Talk, because I'm trying to get comfortable with your new role as many new roles of many of my journalist friends here moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Do a little bit of everything in the league, and still a lot of Cowboys. Of course, there's always interest in the Cowboys, and it's never dull with Jerry and that group over there. So still do quite a bit of Cowboys coverage just from our relationships with those guys over there at the Star in Frisco. But mainly do all the league now and try to keep up with all it. It's not always easy trying to cover 32 teams with everything going on. But to me, it's fun to cover the entire league again. Something I used to do when I first started Star-Telegram as an NFL writer.
Well, I'll tell you what, you'll be covering the Ravens a little bit because they might be 3-0 2 weeks from now, Shireen. Look out for my purple birds, all right? We'll keep you on the hotline. We'll catch up with you again a little later on in the season. But it was great having you on, and I'm really, really glad that you've landed a Pro Football Talk, and I always love following you out on Twitter. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you, Nestor.
You got it, Shireen Williams. Quarter of a century of wisdom deep in the heart of Texas. As I said, I don't like most people from Texas, but I like her. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota. That's a cut at my cousin in Houston, by the way, too, because I always give her a hard time about her Texasness, even though she was born in Lutherville. That's Maryland. Right. The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault's there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear, even in Texas, most parts of Texas anyway. And we do wish everybody well down there. My cousin came through that well. Our in-laws came through well down in Florida. A lot of friends as well with property out in the Naples area and the East Coast area, in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. So obviously we were down there for the All-Star game about 8 weeks ago now. 8 weeks ago, wow. Where did the summer of 2017 go? I do not know. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.